There's a passage in the book of Leviticus that reminds me a little bit of today. And so I want to start with this passage from the book of Leviticus. It says this: "Rise in the presence of the aged and show respect for the elderly and revere your God, for I am the Lord." I was just a little teasing to start our time. But when you think about, I want you to think about this for a second. Listen to the years of service. 36, 32, 37, 31, 13, 149 combined years from 5 individuals that we're going to be celebrating today. 29.8 on average. And actually, when I really think about the service of Dr. Newhouse and Dr. O'Rourke-Kelly and Larry Owsley, Dr. Pfaff and Rod Stewart, probably the verse that truly comes to mind is a verse at the conclusion of James, chapter 5, verse 20. In fact, when you think about when an author brings conclusion to his or her thoughts, right, the last words spoken are pretty significant. The opening statement and the closing statement oftentimes are the places where they really want you to stop and to think. And James concludes his book with this statement. It says, "Whoever turns a sinner from the error of his way saves him from certain death and covers over a multitude of sins." And when I think about the individuals that we're recognizing today and the work in leading GPS and the unbelievable amount of people that have been influenced through that, from biology and the sciences and what you've done in biology and the sciences, from giving leadership and guidance to our entire academic profile. Rod, I mean, how can we stop and thank you for what you've done? Larry, for what you've provided in psychology, but then also the tasks that I've asked you to lead and guide for us these last number of years have been profound. And then I don't know how many times as we bring people to our campus, they visit and they stop and they mention to me the beauty of our facilities and our campus. And Larry, what you have led and guided and provided and ensuring that we have a quality campus and infrastructure to educate our students and to provide the housing for our students is unbelievable. And when I think about the statement from James, not that you're all out there turning sinners from the error of their way, but it's the multiplicative effect of ministry that comes to mind in that statement. That they cover over a multitude of sins. And when I think about the unbelievable impact that you have had on Spring Arbor University and the countless lives that you've touched through your diligence and your sacrifice and your commitment, and then as those young men and women have scattered across the globe and the lives that have been impacted through their work as scientists or business professionals or psychiatrists, psychologists, or all of the above, Larry and Rod, we really are, it's impossible for us to measure the impact that your work at Spring Arbor University has had for eternity, as well as ways that are measured here in the temporal. And so I'll go back to that passage in Leviticus then, because I do believe that what it calls us to do is to take time to recognize and celebrate people that for a long time have invested and made a difference in society and culture. So I'm not calling you aged and I'm not calling you old, but all of you are already standing. But if you're not, let's do this. Let's do what Leviticus says. Rise in the presence of these esteemed retirees so that we can show respect and reverence for God at the command of our Lord. Thank you. We're going to move into a time now where we have a variety of individuals that are going to come and speak about each of our retirees and then provide an opportunity for our retirees to address you as well. And then at the conclusion, we'll continue to have great food and fellowship and be able to tell them all thank you and rejoice with them. And so, Dr. Baldwin, I think you're up first.
So since I'm not the center of attention, I will keep my things short. But I want to make sure everybody knows that Chris has been the glue that has kept our department together and functioning well, and he has provided us with leadership and a good example for us to copy and to aspire to. And that's mostly from me. I wanted to read one very interesting comment from one of the members of our department. Chris is a skilled acupuncturist. I didn't know this about him. It does go on from there. And knows exactly where and when to needle you about fill in the blank. So that's the kind of person that I am going to try to emulate. I won't be the same. But I'll be the department chair and I'll do my best. So, do you have some super wise words for everybody?
Volume 1.
Yes.
Actually, I'm ambivalent about being here today. I know it's time. I'm looking forward to some fantastic time doing other things, but I'm really going to miss colleagues and students. You're all definitely a part of that. I'm also one of a very small number of people in the United States who can say, I have enjoyed going to work every day of my life. And that's due in large part to you who are here, to this community. It's the most wonderful community I could imagine, truly. So thank you all for making the concept, more than a concept, making it reality, for showing what true Christian community looks like. And I also especially want to thank Kathy, and for those of you wondering, yes, both, as well as Sue Knickerbocker. So my wife Kathy and Secretary Kathy. And for all of them, they've done a fantastic job of supporting me and encouraging me, keeping me on task, and making every day a joy. So thank you all for being here.
I don't. Maybe I should grab this. So we're going to go in order unannounced from here. So Caleb, Dr. Chan.
I don't have a great memory, so I'm going to rely on my notes. And well, it's my honor to be asked to say a few words to Margaret, Dr. O'Rourke-Kelly, on behalf of our faculty, our students from the business school. Because of your involvement too with the former school of GPS, I will be remiss if I do not represent what my other colleagues too try to do a decent job. And I know that what many of them are here today. I congratulate you, Margaret, on your retirement and having worked with you for so many years. Margaret, you came to Spring Arbor in 1985. And when we were in college, And over the last 32 years, you have taken on many different responsibilities. You came as an instructor, but quickly moved up the ranks to become associate and then was the full professor of communication in 1996. And over the last 20 plus years, you have devoted most of your time primarily in the School of GPS or with the external programs, but would come here to the campus often for meetings and other special occasions. When you cannot join the meetings, we'll still hear your voice over the technology and can count on your participation and support. Yes, yay, we ask for a vote, and that's Margaret. Or occasionally she would be delayed by a second or two, and then we say, oh, that's Margaret. Yep. In addition to your teaching role, you have also taken on the duties of academic coordinator and director of academic affairs with the external programs, and you completed all these assignments with a great sense of pride and joy. Since my background is statistics, at least I thought, until Brand quoted statistics earlier, 149 years and 29.5 average, those are statistics, by the way. But I do have some, and I do not want Margaret to leave here without at least a little dose of it. Based on the information that I was able to retrieve from the SAU portal, since 1997, which is how far back we can go in terms of the database, Margaret, you have taught 178 sections of courses across 11 disciplines, which include art, communication, English, drama, speech, film studies, MBA, MAOM, MSM, and lots of ORM and business courses. A total of 1,590 students had enrolled in these classes, which averages about 80 per year. If we multiply 80 by 32, you would have 2,544 students. Well, the courses that you typically teach would require written assignments, papers, let's say about one per week. If you multiply that number by 5, you could have easily graded more than 10,000 written assignments and papers. Now, granted that some of these students would have taken the 2 or 3 or 4 courses from you, well, it's fair to say that you have touched the lives of more than 1,000 students. Over the last 32 years, we are teaching on campus, where you started. I just learned about the Kim Hayworth and Brian Shore were both on your Core 100 group. You made them stay, and you helped them grow. And then global and online, covering 13 graduate courses and 44 undergraduate courses. I think no one in this room would argue with me that you have set a Guinness record. Margaret, your love for teaching is not second to your love of acting. If I'm not mistaken, you were part of the 1980 Hollywood movie, Somewhere in Time, which was filmed on the Mackinac Island in the Grand Hotel, featuring movie stars Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeve. Between 1995 and 2009, you had given many performances of a one-woman show titled Home on the Grand with Dora Stockman, which you also wrote and produced. I still remember having watched you perform probably 10 years ago during the homecoming and on campus, and it was very good. I imagine some of the fans might have started calling you Dora or Miss Stockman instead of Margaret, because you have done so well in presenting her to your audience. Margaret, you're a woman of many God-given talents, and you have used them all very well for His glory. You're a lifelong learner, having got degrees from Michigan State, Michigan, and Rod University, where you got your PhD degree. You have been recognized numerous number of times for your many accomplishments, such as recipients twice for Outstanding Faculty Award. Your travel has taken you to many places, such as West Africa on Fulbright grant, and then China when you taught the English studies to the students at Wuhan University of Technology, which we have a sister relationship with, and two of the scholars are here to attest to that. Everywhere you go, Margaret, you observe, you inquire, you learn, you reflect, and you always come back wanting to learn more. You're one of the best faculty marshals. And yes, you'll do it one more time next Saturday when we have our commencement. You'll line the faculty up and we'll behave. Instead of being troublemakers. The list goes on and on. In closing, I'd like to share a couple of remarks. One from a colleague. I don't think he's here today yet. And the other is from a student. I don't think she's here either. The first remark is from Randy Lewis. He said, and I quote, "I remember Margaret shortly after I started at Spring Arbor College in 1989. Margaret is so memorable because of her willingness to assist new teachers like me and her bubbly personality. She was someone I looked up to as a new faculty member. For people like Margaret, it was more than a job. It was a passion to deliver the very best from the depths of her heart and soul. I could tell that students loved to be in her classroom and wanted to be like her someday." Think about male faculty wanting to be like a female faculty now. But the characters that you represent and your passion and love for students. People like Margaret made the SAU such a special place. Congratulations on your retirement, Margaret. I know you'll miss SAU. Sincerely, Randy. The following remarks are from a current BSW student at the Toledo site who said, "Congratulations on your retirement. I hope that you and Dr. Kelly, her husband, enjoy traveling and hosting more murder mystery dinners. You're an outstanding teacher, and I have felt very fortunate to have had you for 3 classes. I look forward to hearing about the new chapter of your life. Thank you for sharing your gift of teaching. Your passion for knowledge and ability to share it was the most rewarding thing that I received from Spring Arbor. With warmest regards, Pfaff, Montanus, BSW, T15. Margaret, thank you for 32 years of service to SAU, and congratulations from all of us. God bless you, and Jerry, in these golden years of your retirement." And finally, contrary to the conventional wisdom of ending on a high note, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Are you ready? Sure. When is the next murder mystery dinner, and how do we sign up for it?
I'm working on it. I'm thinking about writing my next one. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you. I never expected to be here this day. I thought this was just going to be a part-time job. I was drafted by George Klein. He said, "We'd like to hire you." It was like a 2-month audition of every week the group would be smaller and smaller, and they finally got down to a few of us when I was hired. Then I came to campus, and it was the committee that was going to take a look at my spiritual life. And I said, "What? Over lunch? What?" And so they said, "What do you do during the day?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for work." And they said, "We think we have a job for you. Go to the communications department, talk to Del Covey." I talked to Del Covey. I said, "I've never taught like this in a college before." He said, "Of course you can. You ran a political campaign." "Yes, I did that." He said, "Go tell them about it." And it's been a wonderful journey. Every year has been some new experience, anytime I got bored, I could say, well, start looking around for something different to do. And I have loved being with my students, and actually, after that 6-month period is over, I hope to return as an adjunct, hint, hint, and because I adore being with my students. It has been just a wonderful experience. It's my mission. If God gave me the gift to teach, by golly, I'm going to take advantage of it. And it has been a miraculous experience. When I came here, this wasn't here. I was just talking to Carl Jacobson, some of you might know. And we used to sit down in the basement at these rickety old picnic tables and have lunch together, all the faculty members. And it was just a fun experience. And now I teach in these dispersed areas. I've taught all over Michigan, well, except maybe for Alpena and Traverse City, but I've gone to the centers. Most of my work is at night. I can now actually see a television show at night without using the DVR. It'll be a lot of fun. My husband will be able to have meals cooked by me. My husband, after he taught here for at least 20 years, teaching biology and out in the prairie lands, out in the other centers, and he suddenly said to me the other day, he said, "You know, you're not going to be working anymore. I'm going to have to support you now." What happened? All this work on being an independent woman, and now. But it's been a heck of a ride. I've loved my relationship with Spring Arbor. The journey has been more than I expected, much more. I count my blessings every day. Thank you.
Well, I have the pleasure of introducing Larry Owsley. Although I've only been here, I'm a short timer, I've only been here just under 3 years, I imagine that there's very few, if anyone, in this room who doesn't know Spring Arbor University without Larry Owsley. 37 years. He's been a fixture around here for the last 37 years, and he's not out in front of the classes, and he probably hasn't been up to Alpena either, but he's quietly here every day taking care of business and keeping the place exactly as Brent said. Immaculate for visitors, functional for students and staff. Larry began his employment here at SAU on July 14th, 1980. Now, I was going to get a PowerPoint up here and put up a 1980 Gremlin up there just for some context of how long that was, but then I figured a lot of people might not know what a Gremlin looked like. It's an old beat-up car. 13 years later, 1993, he became the assistant supervisor for maintenance services. By 1995, he was appointed as the supervisor for all maintenance services, and finally in 2002, he was promoted to director of physical plant. Since then, Larry's had a steady hand on the physical plant, the maintenance, and the custodial staff, and he's been here during the good times, and he's been here during the lean times. And like a lot of us, he's had to make a little go a long way. Kind of become an expert at duct tape and baling wire, which we're trying to get away from, I want you to know. You know, the director of facility services is one of those jobs which is pretty much behind the scenes. It's really not known to most of the community. It's the calls at 2 a.m. when the sewer's backing up into a dorm. It's when the heating's out at 3 o'clock in the morning and the students and the faculty are going to be showing up at a building that's now 48 degrees. It's a flooded basement or power outage that the generators are now going down and we won't have computers. We either don't have them or won't have them in 2 hours. He's the one taking those calls, fielding those emergencies while we're all sleeping. There's 37 years of that. So another thing that's really important to me is Larry's also probably one of the few people in this place that knows where everything is buried, where everything's hidden, where all the things that are supposed to be aren't there anymore. And he remembers who did what and when it was done, when it wasn't done, and when it was supposed to have been done. So I'm going to miss that tremendously. But all that said, even though I'm a short-termer, I didn't, and I don't have a lot of stories about Larry. I didn't think it would be right for him to get away without some roasting. So I brought up, I'm going to ask Dawn to come up. She's got, come on, you go over here and say a few words about Larry, or you can just, if you want, you can stay there. But she has a little bit more of the flavor of the things that hopefully Larry will remember.
I wouldn't call this a roast, so you don't have to be scared. As Kevin mentioned, Larry has accomplished so much during his time here, and people probably don't know all the things that he does behind the scenes, from making sure there's toilet paper in bathrooms, to flower pots planted on campus, sidewalks shoveled, Christmas lights hung, keys ready for drivers, and many, many more. I'm a numbers person, so I quickly put together some numbers of things that have taken place in Larry's 37 years. I believe he's attended approximately 100 commencement ceremonies, worked 36 Labor Days. He's worked under 8 university presidents. He's attended all 16 hanging of the greens. We've acquired approximately 48 properties around the campus. We've built around 20 new facilities, totaling close to 315,000 square feet. We've completed around $20 million worth of capital renovations and upgrades to our facilities. He's purchased numerous buses, vehicles, lawn equipment, and over the years, he's answered tens of thousands of calls, pages on a beeper, Nextel Direct Connect calls, emails, and text messages. And those who've been around Larry know his phone is constantly going off, and I think Julie can attest to that. Some of you may wonder, what kind of calls does he get? Numerous fire alarms, as Kevin mentioned, sewer main breaks, flooded buildings, vehicle issues, buildings are hot, they're cold, but some of the more interesting ones are, there's soap in the fountain. There's soap in the fountain. Larry, there's soap in the fountain. And that is why we no longer have a fountain. I've heard there were times years ago that there were cars parked inside the dining commons that he had to get out, and on more than one occasion. He's received multiple calls that the silverware is missing in the dining commons. And my understanding is his go-to responses are, have you checked the roof? Or have you checked the bottom of the pool? More recently, those calls have been, the elephant is back. From the Student Center to the Voller House to most recently, the top of the library. All those calls he handles calmly and with a willingness to roll up his sleeves and help wherever he can, except I understand he has always delegated the diving of the silverware at the bottom of the pool to Charlie. But if you talk to those who worked alongside Larry, the words they use to describe him are calm, patient, leader, a team player, caring, motivated, problem solver, hard worker, and friend.
That's a lot of individual issues that have been handled over the 37 years. And the last one I remember, I thought you were going to have a few more roasting things in there, so I'm going to do one about one thing Larry did learn, and he didn't share it with me, but some others did, is that he has student workers. We have student workers here normally, and that's part of their training, and that's something that, it's an important part of a young man or woman's growing up experiences, work expectations and setting. So, there was a young man that we had as a student, name was Everett Piper, and he was a student worker for Larry. And, I think at times maybe Larry was a little rough on the guy. And what you have to be careful, and Larry learned, and it's been shared with me, is that you have to be careful because Everett ended up being the VP of Student Services and ended up being Larry's boss. So before he became president at what university? Oklahoma Wesleyan. So anyways, be careful about your student workers. That's all I wanted to say. So we passed that along. Larry's going to be sorely missed. 37 years, a lot of experience, a quiet, calm leadership style. We're going to miss you. Thank you for all you've done. And I walk him up here now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone being here today. My voice is really weak for some reason. Hangover from last year, I guess, from issues. But first, I'd like to thank Dawn for that. It made me very tired to hear all that stuff. Some of that stuff I tried to forget. Some of it I did. But mostly I'd like to thank my wife and my kids for tolerating all those interrupted phone calls. Every event we ever had was interrupted, I'm sure. Sometimes more than once. So I'd like to thank them for their tolerance of that, putting up with it. I'd like to thank the university for the opportunity. It's been a great job, great career, and I've appreciated it very much. Thank you.
Well, I'm here to introduce Larry Pfaff. I had no idea, Larry, you were the Johnny-come-lately of this group, only having been here 13 years. It seems like a lot longer. I mean that in the most positive possible way. I appreciate this chance to speak on behalf of Larry's wonderful contributions to Spring Arbor. But I want to start with a story. I went home one day, all excited, talked to my wife about, we've got to start making our own noodles and our own soup. And she was a little bit dubious about this, and she finally said, Terry, since when did you become interested in the kitchen? I said, it's because Larry made it seem so fun. And I think that story illustrates the kind of effect that Larry has on people who are around him. He's got this infectious enthusiasm, his love of life, his fun nature. And if you don't live on a floor like ours, where we have cubicles, and so if you happen to live in an area where you can go in and shut your door and do your thing and go home, you miss out on some things, some good, some bad. But in our case, it would have been a shame if we'd have all had offices that closed, because Larry's irrepressible presence affects us all. We can tell when he's there and when he's not there just by his effervescence. I want to tell you just a few of his qualities that he has. Larry's playful. If you interact with him at all, you know that he can tease as well as anyone. He also has an insatiable amount of curiosity. We'll be talking about a subject, and he'll come back the next day and say, yeah, I did some research on that, and he'll share that with us, what he's learned. His knowledge is vast. He knows a lot about a lot, and he's willing to share that with us. He shares it within our cubicles up on our floor. He shares it with our students. He shared it with the university and with the local businesses, Western High School and other businesses in Jackson in consulting capacities. He's a consummate professional. He commutes an hour each way every day. I've never once heard him complain about that commute. He gets here days when people who live a half mile away don't get here. We'll have 15 inches of snow and people won't make it in, and Larry will say, yeah, I saw a few cars along the side of the road, but no problem getting here. That was just something I heard frequently from Larry. He's committed to our department, to our students. And that's why he's going to be coming back this fall to do a little bit more part-time teaching for us. We're very thankful for that. He's also humble. He'd been here a decade before I found out that he was a Hall of Fame quarterback for Kalamazoo College. Most of you don't know that about him. He's a gifted athlete. But along with all these great qualities that he has, I think one of the coolest attributes he has is his willingness and ability to try new things. This last Saturday, he went down to Nashville and ran a half marathon. And, we're all going, well, why? Why would you do that? And his thing is, well, why not? Why not do that? And so I think, he's been a wonderful role model in so many ways. He's now a great role model in how do you go to the next step? How do you retire? How do you do that well? And whether he turns out to be a life coach or a nutritional fitness coach or a counselor educator or all the above plus 20 other things, I know that he's going to do a lot of things. He's not a rocking chair kind of a guy. He's going to do a lot of things, and he's going to do a lot of things well. And so I just appreciate how he's helping to pave the way for some of us who aren't that far behind him. So on behalf of our department, at least, I want to thank Larry for his exceptional years of service to Spring Arbor, and I wish him God's best.
I have absolutely no prepared remarks, so this will be the shortest presentation. Any students here? I'm not going to ramble on past the hour. Thank you very much. This was the shortest 13 years of my life. I'm extremely lucky and blessed to have all the people I've worked with, a department that's wonderful, and a social sciences division that's wonderful, and the university's been great to me too. Every one of you has been a blessing to come to work every day. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to be on campus. It really is. And this afternoon it is especially good to be here as I get to join in the celebration of the accomplishments of some dear colleagues. Dear colleagues, wonderful. As they change from one great life adventure into new adventures. And you also join a club to which I am so proud to be a member, and that is the retirees of Spring Arbor University. Caleb said he had memories, but so he was sticking to a script. I have great memories, and I'm sticking to a script. Because as you get older now, as all of you know who I'm talking about, it's sometimes easier. The person I'm so pleased to stand here to honor is a friend and a colleague. And I'm trying to not get emotional. And a member of this body, this institution, as our president has said, for 31 wonderful years. In fact, he is also partially responsible for my 11 years of service at Spring Arbor, as he was part of the selection committee, so you can blame him for me. During the recruitment and review process for my role here, Rod was one of those persons who most impressed me. I was extremely interested in an institution where Rod Stewart was hanging out. I was surprised and thought Spring Arbor must be a bit more liberal than I thought. I was not disappointed in the fact that our Rod Stewart was a great singer. He has a wonderful voice, but I quickly noted that he sang quite different songs from that other Rod Stewart. So it quickly became apparent that we had the good Rod Stewart. I also quickly understood that I had inherited, because he was here when I came, I had inherited a smart, knowledgeable, compassionate, trustworthy colleague, one who knew this institution well, who loved it, its people, its values, its traditions, and its potential. A person who started here as a faculty member and then went over to the dark side. A man at once both idealistic, with vision for what we could be, but also one squarely planted in the reality of budgets, core curriculum, lack of resources, and the contradictions that you find at any institution. And not only contradictions, but sometimes error. You survived, I believe, 3 or 4 provosts and more presidents. I often said to Rod, you should be provost, and he could have been. I knew that, but more often he enjoyed the behind-the-scenes work, and someone in my role who would never have enjoyed, in some ways, this kind of constant out front. He was always, always, always constant, loyal, trustworthy in everything he did. We spent many a late evening sitting in the office, mine or his, strategizing, but also dreaming about what we could or should do or be doing and what we wanted to do. Sometimes we could do things, and there were other times when we couldn't. I often worried that he was going to get the wife look from Peggy when he got home, when we sat there late nights. Peggy, you have a good man. You have a good man. Thank you for sharing him with us. For many of you who know him, Rod is a serious guy, calm, soft-spoken, quiet, but he is also tenacious about what he believes in, and he's a fighter for right, not afraid to stand up for his beliefs. I loved that about him. He was able to speak truth to power when it was a president or his boss. Also to speak reverently, but also with that kind of sense of integrity to irate parents, upset faculty, or students. He has this great sense of fairness that is ever present. Now, I have wonderful memories of our time together. Memories of being in the Spring Arbor Cafe when neither of us had money to pay for our bill. You remember that? I ransomed him, I left him, and I went to get the money so that they could take him if they, something happened. Of traveling with him and stopping to pick up roadkill. Yes, absolutely. Those of you who know him know that that's exactly, we would stop and we would pick up things off the road. Of the strange things he would eat, like really strange. Of fearing I was going to die as he drove around these curves like a madman in Costa Rica, calm, quiet Rod. And of his taxidermic collection, which he always shared when we were at his home. Of taking over the calling of names at graduation, which I hated and did poorly. And his wonderful radio voice, which added such dignity to our ceremonies. Of singing together and praying together in our staff meetings, and is lifting me up when I fell. But most of all, what is most memorable to me, and the word that best describes him for me, is integrity. That absolute sense of rightness that seems to permeate his life. Whether he was working with his Boy Scout troop, his beloved church, his family, his sons, or with us here at Spring Arbor. The supreme quality for a leader is unquestioning integrity. And the greatness of a man I know is not how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him. I have missed you, Rod, since I left Spring Arbor. Spring Arbor, you will miss Rod. So much of what has happened in the past, he has been behind helping to engineer. Rod, as you enter this next phase of your life, on behalf of all of your colleagues and friends, we pray for your every good thing to come to you. We know God's eyes are on you and that you will continue to walk in his grace. Congratulations, my friend.
Well, I had to write mine out because I knew I'd cry, and I've got to keep some track of what I wanted to say and go from there. So thank you, Betty. Thank you to my wife, of course, as well, as she's been behind me and all of that behind-the-scenes stuff, and thank you. I know it is only by God's grace that I stand here before you today. I am blessed so many ways, and I'm grateful for all that I've been able to do at Spring Arbor. There were some people way back when who thought because I was a Michigan MBA that I'd only be here a couple of years. And there were a few others who wanted me gone after a few years. So I'm thankful for those who were willing to give me a bit more of a chance that there might be a place for me here. I was told some years later that Steve Smiley, as my division chair, had gone to bat for me and essentially saved my job at one point. Through his quiet, almost gentle leading, he did a lot to direct me through my first few years here at Spring Arbor. I remember fondly those times when a good number of us occupied the current Ask area in Kaufman Center space downstairs. That was offices some time back. I think only Randy Lewis and I are the ones that remain from that time down there. He and I shared space behind Betty Vitito's office and her ditto machine and mimeograph machine. There have been lots of moves and changes over the years, but probably the most significant change was when Mark Sargent offered me the opportunity to move from a faculty office to administration office. It was a better fit for me than the classroom, and as a generalist and jack of many trades, master of none, it seemed that I could comfortably interact with many others, faculty, staff, and administration. And here I am today as a result of that shift 24 years ago. I was asked yesterday by an editor for The Pulse, what are some of my favorite memories and what would I miss most in leaving? To the memories, my Cedar Bend weekends and CCS trips come to mind quickly. To what I will miss, I quickly think of all the people with whom I have worked. The staff that have supported me over the years have been terrific, and I have so enjoyed keeping in touch with them, even as they have moved on to other things. I look forward to possibly even more connection ahead. To all of you, thank you so much. I am humbled and honored by the opportunity to have worked with our faculty over these 31 years, to feel a sense of genuine respect, even in those times when we didn't completely agree. To each of you, I am also most grateful. My different interactions with many administrators over these years have been good and engaging. The one person, though, I will single out, from whom I have received much, is Betty. Thank you, Betty. And I'd put in parentheses here in Florida because someone told me that she was in Florida. For your trust and friendship over the 11 years that we worked together. To all of you that have come to celebrate, and to the many that have told me that they would not be able to be here, thanks for a great time at Spring Arbor. This is a community in so many ways. All of you have had an impact on me. Once again, thank you for blessing me.
one more time to Rod and Larry, Margaret, Chris. We are truly indebted to your service and your sacrifice through these years. And we rejoice with you in the next chapter, and we're excited for what you will be able to do and accomplish. But we also will know that what you'll leave behind are great models of character, of service, of a love for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and for a commitment to impacting people for eternity. We now have a chance to continue our time of celebration. We have a reception with wonderful food, opportunity to tell more stories, to shake hands, and to give hugs. And so let me pray, and we will head into that time. Lord, thank you for the wonderful privilege that it is to be a part of Spring Arbor University. And whether that's for 13 years, or 37 years, or even in my case now 8 years, we're all indebted to what you have provided for us in a manner and a way for us to serve and to bring you glory and honor in the context of an intentionally Christ-centered institution of higher education. Thank you for the men and women that make this institution what it claims to be. And thank you for these that we're saying goodbye, for their service, for their love for you, and for their investment in others. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.